Mickey has a couple of other questions other people are going to ask, so I'm going to jump some of that. Is there any case that is hard, and she's talking about Brainscratch, any case that is hard for you to cover? I have to say all of them are hard to cover. And that is kind of what led me to that work. When I first started my channel, this is going to bleed a little bit into another one of the questions, but I can't get around it. When I first started my channel, I just kind of wanted to keep creating content. When I was working with Cirque, I got this new little creative buzz, and all of a sudden Cirque was going away, and I didn't want that creation streak that I was on to end. So I saw YouTube as a platform for, you could do anything on YouTube. You can make any kind of video and put it up, and hey, maybe someone will watch it. And I was always hoping it would grow into more, which it has now, but I didn't know what was going to be the trigger for that. And obviously, Brainscratch was the trigger. The Elisa Lam case, of course, still breaks my heart. But all of them are tough to look at. It's tough to dive into those details. I mean, the Tair Rada case that I reviewed last week, there's just so many grisly details in these things. It's not a lot of fun, and I'm not one of those people that likes to drive by a car accident and, oh my God, can you see something? I'm very much just, hey, I hope the people are okay, and let those guys do their job and keep driving. But these cases can't be handled like that. You have to look at them deeply. And you know, there's weird benefits that are coming out of that I'm finding, like with the Brandon Lawson case, where all of a sudden you get connected with a bunch of people that appreciate that you're helping to raise awareness to this, and it just makes you feel like $1,000,000 that these people that are really, really hurting can get some sense of help, that someone's finally helping them. So it's really a huge benefit to me. What do you do to relax after doing research? Primarily, I'm very good about keeping up with running, so I run at least 3 times a week, usually about 5 miles each time, and on the weekend I'll actually run a little bit longer depending on what type of race I have coming up. I've got this cool setup in my garage where my treadmill has a screen on it, so while I'm running I also get to watch whatever favorite show is just tickling my fancy at that point. And right now I've been watching that awesome Briscoe County Jr. DVD box set that I showed you guys I got for my birthday. I'm almost to the end of it. Really enjoyed a bunch of those episodes. And actually I noticed, I was just watching the pilot and the second episode of Colony, which is a new show that's on the USA Network, and one of the co-creators of that is also a co-creator on Briscoe County Jr., so very cool to see his name pop up again. And do you ever think you will do an animal mystery show with the cat as a co-host? No, I'm serious about that. It's funny you mentioned that because I don't know if I brought it up in my Jackson Galaxy vlog, but when I was talking to him, he was trying to inspire me to do something cat-related as well. And at one point, like where he was even leaning forward, he was going, like, and I still wasn't quite grokking what the idea was. It's kind of a cool idea. There are more than one cat. Gary is the one that usually pops up in my videos because he seems to want to jump in my lap every time I start talking. But we've also got Molly here, who is an all-black cat, and Shelby, who is an orange tabby. Any of them would be a great co-host for an animal mystery show. I'm really going to have to think about that. There's something very fun about that, particularly if I cut to my cat co-host and they just don't say anything and I respond like they do. There could be some fun in that for sure. So thank you, Mickey. All right, so this was asked by several people. Kimberly is asking this. Where did the idea for Brainscratch come from? And it's kind of twofold. In one part, it was Elisa Lam. It was me finding this new series of YouTube videos that were all talking about this mysterious case of Elisa Lam, and many of them were pointing in the direction of it being something supernatural. And I love watching content like that. I love watching, ghost hunters and ghost adventurers and all that stuff. Though it's worth saying that even though I watch those shows, I don't see evidence that compels me to believe what they're experiencing are true phenomena most of the time. Occasionally they'll have something happen to them where I'm like, hey, that's really weird. But in most cases, it seems like they are sometimes scaring themselves. The technology that they're using, I have big questions about, and I used to be a very, very big technology guy. I'm a bit less so now, but even to the point where I have several patents for a company that I was working for in the technology field. So there's some of that kind of put this big question in my head, and I just wanted to start a conversation about that stuff. So that's really, and I got to give a quick shout out to Flying Spaghetti Monster here, who just left a comment about, hey, remember the good old days, and he had a link to the first Brainscratch, and I rewatched just the intro for it, and that's really what it was about, taking a story that people thought was one thing and just asking the question, could it be something else, and if so, what would that be? And that is basically kind of where Brainscratch came from. There was also this realization for me that there was certain types of content that I liked to watch, and why wasn't I producing more content like I liked to watch? If you look in the older stuff in my channel, there's a lot of comedy videos and song spoofs and stuff like that, and I like that stuff, but I don't really watch that stuff. You know, there's a bit of a difference. I'll bump into certain channels, like I love Honest Trailers by Screen Junkies. There's this new video series where they're doing like these movie spoofs, but they're putting big heads on everyone. They're using their own actors and superimposing these giant heads on the movie clips. And that stuff is really, really fun, and I'll kind of watch it as it comes up in my feed, but it's never the kind of stuff that I go searching for. The stuff that I go searching for was always mystery content, basically. So once that kind of clicked in my head, it was like, wow, that means the research would at least be somewhat enjoyable because you like looking at this stuff already. You're already watching a bunch of that content because there's some element of it that's entertaining you. So why not take all that and put your own version of that out? And that's what Brainscratch is. And some people have even compared me to other channels. You know, there's a big channel named a guy named Rob Dyke that does content kind of similar, but he does a bit more of an artistic take. Almost, it's not that he's like glamorizing murder. I don't want to quite put it in that way, but there's storytelling around these true stories, and then there's trying to tell the truth of the story. And I think that's the difference between like Creepy News and Brainscratch. You know, I'm not gonna run scary music under the underscore of me talking. I'm not going to try to tailor the events or tell them to you in a specific way to get you more creeped out. I'm always going to be looking for the information and trying to present it in the most reliable fashion, the most reliable information, and then hopefully it's really up to you to figure out, is that information compelling? Is it believable? And then what is your belief from that? And yes, obviously, I want to be part of that conversation too, so sometimes at the end I will talk about or even as it's going on, I'll talk about my beliefs. But my beliefs are extremely, in terms of those cases, because they are true mysteries, my beliefs are flexible. If you watch the whole Elisa Lam series from start to end, I start that series thinking the whole thing's a hoax. In the very first episode, I'm really questioning the validity of her even existing. And obviously, I grew very different from that, but all of that came as a result of you guys. And that's where I think Brainscratch has its greatest strength, is television is made for a one-way conversation. YouTube is made for a two-way conversation with post-follow-up, but not everyone uses it that way, and that's a place where I'm really trying to stay in the zone with Brainscratch, is being sure that I'm looking at all the follow-up that's happening after the video is posted, seeing what your ideas are, what new information you're bringing to it, and then that's where subsequent episodes can come from, and that's where my belief might change as I get more information. That's really how this thing's supposed to work. And one of the things that bums me out the most is when you'll run into a commenter who just knows it all and knew it all from the start. And that position I see as a form of ignorance. There's this kind of self-delusional thing that some people fall into where they want to truly act. Maybe it's them acting, or I don't know if they're like this in their personal life, but they want to know it all. And for these types of mysteries, you can't. It's impossible. the authorities don't know it all. The only person that knows it all is usually the victim, and the victim usually cannot communicate with us what happened. So that is essentially where Brainscratch came from. And then, of course, you know, as I got suggestions from everyone, once again, my list is almost up to 200 ideas for Brainscratch episodes, and I've got close to 50 ideas now for Searchlight episodes. As I see the suggestions come in from you guys, I'm able to see these new angles on, hey, let's break off missing persons and make that Searchlight. And I do believe the next step is to break off murder cases and to make that another sub-show. But I'm trying to figure out this mechanic of working with free researchers, essentially, to help me get to that point. And I think it's going to take me a little longer, but it might come this year. I think there's a good chance it's going to come this year. So a little bit of inside info for you. And it's a great time to be asking this question. Brainscratch is 1 week away from being a year old. So we're coming up on our first birthday, and I've got a few special gifts for you, my wonderful audience, that I'm working on that will be coming out soon. All right, last question here, or last set of questions from Gabrielle Platikite, I believe is how you say, or Platikite? No, Platikite, I would think. Sorry if I'm butchering that, Gabrielle. Once again, she's asking what influenced Brainscratch. We've already covered that. But she wants to know, what is your professional background and what influenced you to start a YouTube channel? My background primarily was in entertainment technology. I worked at 20th Century Fox when I was very young. I think I started there at the age of 20. And I was basically the computer support guy for all the legal departments. And from there, I kind of grew into an IT manager. I worked as a programmer for a time. I always had network administrator titles here and there. But what happened was I got to work with Cirque du Soleil on one of their shows at the Dolby Theater, which is where the Oscars happen. And that was kind of what I wanted to make my last tech job. And what happened there is once we heard the show was closing, I started making videos using resources that were there. We were basically like a little television studio for that show because there was video that was integrated into the show. So they had cameras and lights and sound, the whole department for these things, a whole prop department. Of course, we had talent that was all over the place. The show had, I think when it closed, we were down to maybe 100 performers in the show. And I wanted to do some writing, so I wrote some sketches, and we started shooting that stuff backstage. All this is available on the channel if you search. I think I have a playlist called Legends of Dolby Theater where you can see these kind of early sketches that we wrote and shot. So it was just this weird creative streak that happened around that time of me working there, and me kind of finalizing the choice that, you know, the tech industry was really good to me. But there was aspects of it I didn't really like, and I wanted to migrate to something else. And that's really where the whole choice about, you know, YouTube being a serious goal for me came from. Now, what's the channel's goal? At this point, it is creating compelling content and growing. That's really it. Early on, if you look at it, like I stated before, it was more comedic in nature. And now it's moved more towards mystery channel. It's actually moved to that so much that I'm considering renaming it at some point because, you know, Geek and Dorks doesn't quite cover the mystery segment that I'm kind of reaching for nowadays. But even Geek and Dorks was inspired by Geek and Sundry. And Geek and Sundry is a YouTube channel. It's run by Felicia Day. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. They had some really good shows that I liked a few years ago. Since then, they've sold themselves to a very big company called Legendary Pictures, and now Legendary Pictures has been bought by China, from what I understand. I was not really big on those decisions. I thought that they should have tried to stay independent. I assure you that if I do ever get to that level of working with other people, I will always try to maintain the integrity and independence of my voice. But Geek and Sundry they were having a contest for vloggers, and I literally just started vlogging at that point, and I was really rusty. They're still available on my channel. You can see them. Maybe I'll do a video where I watch one of my old vlogs and kind of comment on it. I liked to talk about Star Trek a lot. And that's really, I knew that I was a geek. I knew that I was an IT dork. I knew that that I could associate with that crowd. But in terms of really bringing something more valuable to people, I feel like Brainscratch was the breakthrough moment. And of course, Searchlight has been just as successful in my eyes. There's people that appreciate these kind of logical looks at these real world stories, and especially how sensitive I can be around these topics that are sometimes mishandled by certain YouTubers, sometimes glorified for other YouTubers. But me, I'm looking for the truth, and I think you guys are too. So, woo! That is it for the JohnnyVlogs Q&A. I didn't know it was going to go that long. If you're still here, you are a Geek and Dork super fan. Thank you so much. I love you. Yeah, that's. I mean, wow. If you stuck this whole thing out, you're awesome. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I will catch you on the next show on the Geek and Dorks, or whatever it's going to be called soon, channel. Take care.